Well, we've recognized for a long time, particularly in the business that we work in, that water, agriculture, and the environment are critical areas that need to be evaluated. And if you tend to look at a lot of conferences, they look at water in general, but so much of it is around sort of energy issues or municipal kinds of things. But we look at particularly in the last little while with increasing food prices on a world basis, real concerns about our ability to feed a growing population, that the issue of water, agriculture, and how that impacts our abilities to produce more food, but what its impacts might be on the environment is a critical issue for discussion. So that was the purpose for the theme of what we were looking at for this particular conference. In terms of even just population growth, it's projected that in the next 25 to 30 years, the world population is going to be up to about 9.5 billion people. By 2100, that'll be up close to 10 billion people. What we're already recognizing is that our food stocks, because of issues either of drought or of flooding in many parts of the world, are simply not keeping up the demand of food. And we're expecting to see that food requirement double in the next number of years, perhaps in the next 30 to 40 years. So from I guess, an even opportunity standpoint, if you look at Alberta as one of those major food producing areas of the world, I think there is going to be huge opportunity for us to increase our production and actually have a sale for it in the future. But I think there's also a moral obligation that we need to be looking at as the demand for food continues to increase. Many countries, because of water shortages, are not going to be able to be food self-sufficient and are going to look to countries like Canada and Alberta to produce a lot of that food. So I think we're going to see opportunities, but I think we're also going to see some challenges on how we do that. We used to think that water was an infinite resource in Canada and even in Alberta. We've now recognized with the closing of some of our basins in southern Alberta that we are dealing with a finite resource. So as we think of these opportunities for the future, we need to temper that a little bit with a recognition that there's a lot of competition for the water that we have, and we're going to have to do better with how we manage that water in the future than we have in the past. Well, we've certainly got a good lineup of speakers with a lot of experience in a number of areas, both from a global standpoint as well as right down into the regional area. So I'm hoping that as we start to see some of the presentations coming together, that we're going to get a much better understanding of the issues around water supply and things like water quality, a recognition that we are dealing with a very finite resource. But we have these huge opportunities as an agriculture industries to produce a tremendous amount more food than we've done in the past, and to see where that might go, both, I guess, on a regional, a Canadian perspective, but as importantly on an international perspective in our ability to feed that growing world population. Certainly a part of the conference is to look at where we've been and where we are today. But a lot of the focus that I'm hoping to come out of it is, where do we go in the future? It is to challenge everyone in this room in terms of, we understand where we've been and that's valuable, but the real challenge is to think beyond 15 or 20 or 30 years. What does the long term look like? And what are those kinds of decisions that we're going to have to make, both in the short term and the long term, but always looking to the future and looking at beyond our borders. This is not just a southern Alberta issue, although many of our decisions will be impacting in that, but we need to be thinking global, because what happens in the globe and the rest of the world will have either a huge impact on us, or I'm taking the glass half full approach, that there's going to be some huge opportunities for the agriculture industry in all of Alberta and across Canada, but particularly a focus on southern Alberta right now. So I think over the last 10 to 15 years, we've started to recognize that we are dealing with a resource that is not infinite. And if we look at the rest of the globe of countries like Egypt and many of the Mideast countries, they have recognized this for a number of years, and some of their challenges of how they deal with that are going to be very daunting for them as their populations continue to grow. I think it's generally considered that we are in a very favorable place right now of being able to still be proactive in making those decisions as we go forward. So we shouldn't panic. We shouldn't let emotion take over from common sense science as we think through these things, but neither should we be sitting and doing nothing about it. This is a time when we need to be putting a lot of effort into planning, more research, more evaluation, and really evaluate where we need to be going in the future. And I'm very optimistic that we're on a good path to do that. And a conference like this, I think, brings a good cross-section of Albertans and folks from outside our borders to come and talk about those kinds of things and share with each other lessons learned and opportunities that we can look at in the future. So I think this is a very valuable day and a half, and I'm looking forward to some of the real high-level speakers that we have that are going to bring that to the fore.